You're listening to The Mountain Spirit, a podcast of Christian Appalachian Project. Join us as we talk with artists, leaders, and change makers about heritage, hope, culture, and transformation as we celebrate the voices and traditions that shape Appalachia and inspire us all. Our guest today is Katie Carrico, a shepherdess and homesteader. Alongside her husband and 3 little boys, she raises hair sheep, flower farms, and gardens on their quiet Kentucky farm. Today we'll get to hear a bit of her journey from small town roots to building a life on Lost Oak Farm. Hi Katie, welcome to the show.
Hi Tina, I'm so happy to talk to you today.
I am so excited to get a chance to meet you. For those who follow CAP's social media, they have seen you and your family out in our food pantry, spotlighting food insecurity. So it's really exciting to get a chance to hear on more of your journey, because that was on the CAP side of what we do. But we're excited to get to dig in today to learn a little bit more about you and the farm and your family. So why don't we just jump right in?
Sounds perfect.
Awesome. So can you share a bit about your upbringing, where you're from, and how that shaped your values?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Eastern Kentucky, which is why I was initially familiar with CAP. So I'm from Johnson County. CAP has an office in our county seat, Paintsville, but I'm from, my friends would say, out in the boonies of Johnson County, a little small town called Flat Gap. You would miss it if you blinked. But my parents actually own like a little gas station, pawn shop, and it kind of felt like the hub of the community growing up. I worked there from like 6th grade and until any time they can get me to come back and work. But growing up, I would have sworn that I never wanted to live anywhere but the mountains. I loved the environment, nature, my surroundings, and I really just loved the small town community. It just feels like its own little world there. But you know how the story goes. I met a man. I went to UK and met my husband, and I always told everyone I would have followed him to Alaska if he had wanted me to. But thankfully, he only lived in central Kentucky. So now I'm about 3 hours away. Still very much feel connected to Appalachia. My parents are still there. Anybody can tell anytime they talk to me where I'm from. So that's always fun that I get to chat to people about it a bunch just because of my accent.
There you go. Oh, so how did you and your husband meet? You said that you follow him wherever. I feel the same way about my husband, and that's how come I'm in Kentucky now, all the way from North Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
But what role did the agriculture community play in bringing you all together?
Yeah, it definitely did, because whenever I went to UK, I started out as an ag major. I ended up switching to English education, which is totally different. But my husband was in the ag fraternity at UK, AGR, and I was in an ag dorm and an ag major. And so we had all kinds of common friends, and that's ended up what brought us together. And we had very similar backgrounds in that we both grew up around farming. He grew up raising beef cattle and raising tobacco, and I grew up with horses and raising tobacco and hunting dogs and things. So we were very like-minded in our values and in our interests, and we always knew that we wanted to farm, but I don't think we envisioned what our farm looks like. It looks like now it's expanded a little bit. God has taken us in a direction we didn't expect.
So you talked about changing your major. So what inspired you to be a high school English teacher? And what is a favorite memory about that time in your life?
Oh, that's a really good question. I started out as an animal science major. You know, I think that's what every farm kid thinks when they're a kid, that they're going to be a vet, you know? And I got to college and I thought, wow, I'm just really not very good at science. So I had to think, you know, what are the things I'm good at? And I've always been a book nerd, and I loved, you know, AP Lit and things in high school. And so the options are a little bit limited whenever it comes to what job you can get if you're kind of a book nerd, a literary person. And so I went down the English teacher path. And I loved all of that in college because it was essentially just spending a few years studying literature and digging into books and reading. And so I ended up teaching at Boyle County for a few years before I had kids. And gosh, my favorite memories, I have so many just special kids that I still chat with every now and then that I taught freshmen, and so I like to say that they're that age where they're old enough that you can have really deep conversations and you can just really see how their minds are working and they're thinking, but they're still young enough where they're not too cool for you. They
Yeah.
still want you to like them. And I think that there are a lot of kids that I just kind of got to welcome into high school and make them feel comfortable and confident with themselves, just by letting them talk and say what's on their mind and what they think. And it's cool because I still chat with some of them sometimes. I have them messaging me about their college papers and new businesses that they're doing and stuff. So it's definitely the kids that I connected with. That was the best part.
That's awesome. Your story sounds very parallel to mine. The same thing, you kind of think, well, I'm not really that good at math, but I really like books and I like to read. What kind of job can I have? So mine went the journalism path. I was like, I don't want to, because I was just like, I didn't want to be a teacher.
Yeah, you went the writing direction.
And I sort of like to write. Didn't have any clue what journalism, like just the reporters on TV. But here I am doing something adjacent, a little bit adjacent. But God has His own path.
He do, and I bet you never thought that this is what you would end up doing.
Not at all. No, I didn't even know it was a thing, to be honest. So here we are. Okay, so tell me a little bit then about that journey. So now we went from you were thinking I might go into agriculture. That path kind of changed. You taught high school English. Okay, so then how was your journey transitioning from teaching high school to homesteading and shepherding?
Yeah, it's kind of the full circle that even whenever I wanted to go into agriculture, I wouldn't have ever pictured it like this. I feel like I've circled back around to like hanging out with my grandparents whenever I was a kid, that I was never interested in all their gardening and their canning and stuff whenever they were doing it. But here we are. So I was pregnant with my first boy. I have 3 boys now. And during COVID. And so I had him while COVID was happening. School had been crazy up until that point. And once my maternity leave was over, I hadn't been able to find childcare because everything had been reduced, like the capacities. And so I had to go on extended leave. And that ended up being such a blessing because I never thought that I would be somebody that wanted to stay home with my kids. Yeah. And God really worked on me in that season of, having to stay home. And showing me like, I don't want to send my children off to somebody else. Like I want to be the one that's there with them. And so that's really what started it, because whenever I quit my job, obviously a lot of stay-at-home moms have to figure out what are we going to do for money. Yes. And so in order to balance out that cost, we kind of thought, well, let's expand the farm and work it a little bit more. So we had sheep, but we increased our flock so that hopefully I could kind of handle the sheep and sell more lambs. That was our kind of first endeavor, was to sell lambs. And I just, on a whim, started Instagram just to hopefully sell some more sheep or get people interested in sheep or the farm or whatever as a marketing technique. And it took a while, but eventually the things that I was sharing on Instagram kind of started to take off, and it became more than just, this is a sheep farm. As Instagram expanded, my interest expanded too, and I really started digging into the food we eat and our food systems and what it means to take control of our necessities and our needs. So what started as a way to save money, so gardening, the sheep, hunting and stuff, I realized, this is what I actually think is better in terms of how we're living. I want my lifestyle to be intentional and slow and using my hands, and I want to be connected to my food, and I want my kids to grow up being like this as well. And it turns out that there are a lot of people in the world that are interested in that, want to do it themselves, or at least want to learn about it. And so it's kind of cool because it's allowed me to continue teaching on a platform and make connections with people. As a stay-at-home mom, I'm getting to connect to people every day about topics that I'm super passionate about, instead of just, literary devices and things like that.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Did you know on this Giving Tuesday, families in need in Appalachia are counting on you? Don't miss this opportunity to provide nutritious food, warm clothing, critical home repairs, and Christ's love to people living in unimaginable poverty. Visit christianapp.org to give today to help children, families, and seniors in need.
So tell me then, what made you choose sheep over cattle? Because you had mentioned that your husband was raised on a cattle farm, that you grew up raising hunting dogs and horses. So why sheep?
That's a good question. Because we definitely live in a cattle heavy area. So whenever we bought the farm, it was pretty bare. Like it was a fixer upper. There was not really any good existing fence. So we knew we had a lot of work to do, but we started off by just cutting it for hay, but there was one part of the farm that was hard to get to. And so we were like, maybe we'll just get some sheep just to have something to eat it down since we couldn't cut it for hay. Sheep are really known as like being lawnmowers because they'll eat whatever. So we ended up getting them, and I was like, Daniel, we're in trouble because I really like them. So we ended up really enjoying them. And I think what's good for me is that I'm comfortable with the kids being out with them. I'm not ever worried. I think with cattle, they're just so large. I would be concerned having the kids run out there, but I don't have to worry about that with his sheep. And also I can handle the sheep really well. If I need to, I can sit one on its butt and take care of it if Daniel's not here. There's been multiple times where we've had to pull lambs and he hasn't been here, and I've been able to get it up and handle it. And I'm not saying I couldn't do that with cows, but I would be a lot less confident doing that with a large cow.
Yeah, that makes sense. So then, tell me a little bit about you, because you talked about you just mentioned the farm and how when you first got there, it had some fencing, but maybe not everything. The grass was high and all things. Talk about finding this farm and then transforming it to Lost Oak Farm, and tell me a little bit about the name, how you all came up with the name.
Yeah. You asked one of my favorite questions to answer, which is how we found the farm. We actually, from the time that we found it and it was for sale to the time we closed on it, was like a year. And it was such a God thing. We came and looked at this farm and I was like, Daniel, I love it. And of course, he is the voice of reason in the relationship. He said, we are not paying that much money for the farm. He said, we can't. So I was in church one day and the preacher was talking about those times where like God has put something on your heart and made something very clear to you, but it's clear that everybody else thinks you're crazy. Yeah. Like it doesn't make sense, but you know he's told you this. And just as clear as day, he put this picture in my mind of this hillside. And I was like, I know that that's that farm that we just went and saw. And so from then on, I was like, Daniel, this is our farm. And he says, that's great, but we're not paying this much money for this farm. So he was the one that reeled me back in. And I tried to maintain the faith of, I know we're going to live here. So they reduced the price. And Daniel still said that's too much money. And then they took it off the market. Then they put it back on the market, and then they reduced the price, and then we lowballed them a whole. It was this whole big long process, but it was such a testimony to God and having faith in His timeline, because we knew the whole time that we were going to get it, but it took a long time, and we did. We got it for a really good price, so praise Him. But it was pretty bare, and we needed a lot of fence. We also built our home here. We were very blessed to work with the local FSA office and their EQIP program, which really helps young farmers and new farmers to get fencing up and stuff. So we took about 3 years to fence the farm, and we built our home here. We pretty much built it ourselves. We built a barn. So we've done a whole lot here. We feel very blessed. And we call it Lost Oak Farm because before we had the farm, my husband's a woodworker. And for a while, he kind of sold his woodworking stuff. And we called it Lost Shop because we didn't have a shop. He was working out of his parents' shop because we didn't have a farm yet. So it felt like we were a little bit lost. So we wanted to continue that. And the oak is because if you look at an aerial map of our farm, it looks like an oak leaf with all the ridges that we have. So we thought that was fitting.
There you go. That's very creative. I love it. So what are some of the bigger challenges outside of the fencing and, of course, having to build your own house and your barn and buy the sheep? What were some of the biggest challenges you face having a fixer-upper property?
Oh, I think one is just deciding what to do with it, because it was a fixer-upper in that it was kind of a blank slate.
Yeah.
It had taken up a lot of the old fence. There was one little measly shed on the property. So it's kind of hard to decide what we were going to do with it because there were just so many options. And so whenever we worked with FSA, we got, it's called an EQIP program. which is kind of a grant program, and they kind of help you decide where you're going to put your fence for rotational grazing and stuff. So they kind of set some limits on us on what we could do with fence, which was actually kind of nice because that helped us to make the decisions. And then building our house, we really wanted it to fit in with our land and kind of blend in with things. Instead of we wanted our farm to be the prominent part, not our home. So we kind of built it kind of into the woods a little bit. But just making decisions was difficult. We've also had a lot of trouble in the past, hopefully not anymore, with coyotes and the sheep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's our biggest predator around here whenever it comes to sheep. Other places have, eagles and wolves and things like that, but coyotes are our issues. We have a lovely dog who does his job when he stays home, which is not all the time. So we struggle with coyotes a bit. We think we've got the situation settled. But I think the continual struggle with a farm is just that you never know what problem you're going to run into.
Yeah.
And I'm very thankful for my husband, who is very handy. I'm not. But he has a lot of knowledge on how to fix things, and he gets joy out of fixing things. So that really comes in handy because we have all kinds of stuff breaking all the time and all kinds of stuff that we need to fix up all the time. But it feels good to be living this way and to be working with our hands. And we know God's always guiding us whenever we have these problems.
Absolutely.
So that's reassuring.
Absolutely. So tell me, how many sheep do you have, and what is the type of sheep that you all raise, and why that particular kind of sheep did you choose?
Yeah. So we raise Katahdins, and they are a hair sheep, which a lot of people don't even know that that's a thing. I met somebody this week that said, I didn't know there were any sheep that didn't have wool. That's the main reason we raise Katahdin, is because you don't have to deal with the wool. They are more like a horse or a cow or a dog. Their hair just gets thicker in the winter to keep them warm, and in the summer it sheds off on its own. Yeah, so
I've never heard of that either. So There you go.
If you look at our fence lines, they are covered in hair because they'll rub their back on the fence because it itches and it comes off. Wool doesn't have a lot of value anymore. Like back in the day, all kinds of clothing and stuff was made out of wool, but so many things are made with synthetic fibers now that wool doesn't have a lot of value. So now it's more like a nuisance to have to shear these animals once a year. So we have the hair, and they're for meat. And we actually are downsizing our flock currently. We did have 64 ewes, and we had around 100 lambs this spring.
Oh, wow.
It's super fun just to see all those lambs running around. But we've expanded into a lot more animals in the last few years. And so we've started downsizing our sheep herd a little bit to our favorites, because we have been getting into other animals.
Yeah. So what other kind of animals do you have on the farm?
We've harvested some this year. So we have laying hens, and then we had meat chickens that we harvested this spring. And my husband just got guineas. And we have 2 goats that are milk goats, but they haven't been bred yet, so they're not in milk. And we raised 4 pigs this year, and we harvested them a few months ago. Geese, rabbits, a dog. I think that's it.
It's awesome. You mentioned your faith a couple of times already. Can you talk to me a little bit more about how your faith has guided your journey as your family has become farmers?
Yeah, it's hard to simplify that answer because God just feels so intertwined in everything that we've done. We try really hard to just heed his call on our life. And sometimes that's things that sound really great and fun, and sometimes it's not. But he really led us from a place where we were in the rat race of the world and just going along with whatever was normal. And I recognize now that we live a lifestyle that's not super mainstream and it's not super popular, but it's really where God has led us. I think that he has wanted us to slow down and stop focusing on the world and focus on him, and wanted us to really be in tune with the things that he created for us and see the value in the things that he created for us. And it's incredible because the more that we lean into what he's telling us to do, the more that we see him in everything.
Yeah.
A good example would be I've gotten a lot more into like medicinal plants and herbal medicine and stuff. And he just really had a plan with that. It's crazy to like walk outside and see plants that can heal ailments that he put there for us.
Yeah.
But we have forgotten all of that. And so it's awesome. Not only have I found so much joy in doing this, which I know is a source from him, it's something that he has given to me, this joy that comes from this, but it's just shown me more of his character and more of his goodness.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that, of just seeing him at work and unfolding his plan.
It's just, you can't miss it. It's just so in your face. And I could just talk on and on about his goodness.
I love it. How do you balance flower farming, gardening, and livestock, and your family? Like, how do you, and your Instagram channel and followers and engagement and all the things, how do you find balance? And then how do you find time for yourself in the midst of all of those things?
I've been talking about that a lot with my husband because it's hard. I think for any mother, I think it's hard not to look around and notice all the things that you didn't get done in a day. I think those are always the glaring things that my laundry is screaming at me all the time that I need to pay attention to that. My floors are unswept or whatever. And Daniel keeps reminding me that it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. God put us on this earth and we are living for him. And all these little piddly things that we let weigh us down and stress us don't matter in his kingdom. I have to fight really hard against like needing validation and feeling like my accomplishments define me. Like I want a to-do list and I want to feel really good whenever I check it off. But I've been trying real hard to fight against that and remember that my value comes from God and being a child of God, and that all of the little baskets that I have my fingers dipped into, that those aren't what define me. One thing I might do really great at one day and forget 5 other things. That's what I have a partner for. And my kiddos, they do a wonderful job of picking up slack. So it's chaos and sometimes organized chaos, but I just get done what I can and give the rest over to God.
Amen. Amen to that. I hope our listeners are hearing that and are making note of that as well. So how has sharing your homesteading journey online helped others take that leap? And where did that online journey start for you in terms of recognizing, this is really a community of which I'm a part of, and people are maybe looking to you to maybe help them make that decision?
Once I started getting some traction, I started sharing more about basically simple little skills that I was learning in order to become more self-sufficient, become more of a cooking from scratch mom and things like that. And I tried to present it as, this is kind of your skill set that you're building, just that you're chipping away a little at a time. It's not overwhelming. It's just a little bit. You can just learn this one thing. And I think that was really empowering for people because, you're not changing your whole life. You're just changing one little thing. You're just doing the next right thing. And it's awesome for me because as a stay-at-home mom, it can be a little isolating because it's just me. A lot of days it's just me with my kids.
Yeah.
But whenever you're on social media, it's like you have friends that you can chat with. Like I'm responding to messages. I'm chatting back and forth with people that I will probably never meet and have never met before, but we're virtual friends. Yeah. And that was great for me. And I think it was really good for other moms to have friends in that isolation.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Love it. Love it. Love it. What advice would you give to families that are considering maybe a move to a rural or farm life?
I think it would be, first of all, don't settle on land. Be in prayer about what land is for you, because I think it's really easy. Like it's such a crazy buying, selling economy right now, just to try to jump on whatever you can, but wait, be patient in your journey to that, because if that's where God wants you to go, he's going to have the best place for you. And don't overspend. And I guess I would say that finding a mentor, I know that sounds easy, but finding a mentor is very helpful. If you can find a person in real life or virtually that you can look to, It's super beneficial. I know I've said a ton of times that my granny and pa were really influential in my life, but at the time that they were alive, I didn't know I was going to be interested in this stuff. I didn't care at all about canning whenever I was 13. But now I wish I could go back and ask them a ton of questions. So there are a lot of people, I think, that don't have their grandparents anymore. And a lot of our parents, kind of didn't follow in their parents' footsteps. So it's really helpful if you can just find somebody that at least has common interests as you to spitball off of, to get advice from, and just to feel like you're not alone, because it can be a big transition if you're going from living in the city to living on a farm.
Yeah. I think that as you were telling, that resonates so much with me. I grew up in a small town in North Carolina, and likewise, when my grandmother was making homemade biscuits, like, I wasn't there to learn how to do that, or so many things that, she knew how to do. I had a great uncle that, just like you were talking about medicinal plants, like, he could just like what you were saying, walk out and be like, oh, that's what, if any of us had any kind of sickness or anything, we would go up to his house, and he would send down, we would call it the roots, right? And he would either give you something to drink, and it was always awful. It looked awful, it smelled awful, but you would be better. And so just knowing that those kind of things were lost, so you're kids and you didn't value it as you do as an adult, and look back and wishing you had maybe slowed down and paid a little bit more attention. So I'm glad that your kids are having, getting that opportunity, and that you're pointing to other families who may not know where to start. And like I said, maybe your virtual mentorship will help them to think through some of the things that, they need to consider and pray about before they make that decision.
I think there's a lot of people on Instagram, like, I'm not just speaking for me. I have all kinds of people on Instagram that I'm like, Instagram influencer, quote unquote, friends with, who are the same for me, because they're experts in, different areas. So I think you can, if you're super interested in medicinal herbs, I think you can find somebody who's really great for that. Or if you're super interested in harvesting your own beef, that is the great thing about social media. I know it has a lot of downfalls, but if you want to learn, it's just right there at your fingertips. My husband basically built our house from YouTube, so there is all kinds of stuff out there.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Your generosity has a direct and positive impact in the lives of people in need in Appalachia every day. It is the unwavering support of faithful friends like you that make this work possible. Many of our supporters are beginning to plan and envision what kind of legacy they want to leave to support the causes that are near and dear to their hearts. CAP is happy to provide a safe and easy experience for people to create a will and support CAP through non-cash gifts. Through our partnership with Free Will, CAP offers our donors the ability to create a will online and alter it at no charge. Our partnership with Free Will also includes their Smart Giving Suite, which allows donors to give through their IRA, donor advised funds, and stock online, in addition to creating a will for free. In recent years, Appalachia has faced unrelenting challenges, including the pandemic, inflation, and back-to-back natural disasters. You can make a life-changing impact and leave a legacy of hope in Appalachia. To learn more about non-cash giving opportunities, please visit christianapp.org/more ways to give.
What does living a simple life mean to you, and how do you pursue it each day?
It's super important to us to slow down, one, for the sake of our kids, because I think that it's become really common to put your kids in all kinds of things. And I think that can be a little overwhelming to their childhood. We want them to experience childhood through lots of outside time, through lots of play. I think it's really critical to their development. And so that just in itself causes us to slow down, because we want to allow them to have plenty of time to be kids. And also, I think just the things that we're interested in, feeding ourselves is very important. Like, a lot of the things we do around the farm contribute to feeding us and preparing food for us. And I think the way that we do that is slowing down. Now, that's not to say that we're not busy, because we do a lot around the farm. But I think we're slow in comparison to the fast-paced nature of the world, where you need to have your kid in multiple sports. You need to be going out to eat all the time. You need to be going on a bunch of vacations every year. That busyness and hustle culture of the world is kind of what we're trying to slow down from and lean more into working with our hands, working in the dirt. And even though sometimes that is a lot of hard work, it feels slow to us because it's stepping away from the world. It feels like we're stepping away from worldliness and stepping into God's earth and, kind of what he's given us. And I say that with not down talking anybody who doesn't live a rural life. That is where God has called us. And that is the way that we experience God. And that is not to say that God has that calling on everybody's life, and not to say that that is how other people will experience God. Yeah. So I don't ever want that to come off as looking down upon somebody. Just heed his calling on your life, whatever that may be.
Yeah, that's beautiful. We spent most of the show talking about the farm animals, but talk a little bit about your flower gardens and what do you grow there and what makes you smile when you see your flowers?
Well, right now, the joy of the flowers comes from the boys because they enjoy it so much, especially my oldest. I grow enough that they are welcome to go cut pretty much whatever they want to. So it's like once a week they go out and they make new bouquets for the house and they run around with their little snips and get so excited. They pick flowers and use them as ingredients in their mud kitchen. They have a ton of fun. But the flower farming started out as more of a business venture. So we had a flower trailer, and I've done a few low-key weddings, not extravagant, but bridal bouquets and things like that. And now we've slowed down on that a bit just because 3 kids is a lot. But we still grow plenty of flowers. So mostly we grow giant marigolds, zinnias, gomphrena, sunflowers, basil, celosia. They're really the ones that are easy to direct seed. I like the ones that are very prolific, yes. But we've started growing some medicinal flowers too because we're more interested in that. My husband is very interested in the medicinal flowers, but sometimes you can use those in bouquets too, like echinacea and bee balm and chamomile and stuff.
Yeah. Sounds beautiful. I saw your flower arrangements on your website, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, those bouquets are so beautiful!" So
it's a nice creative outlet just to make bouquets, and it's also great. I really enjoy giving to people. We're kind of in a season where we feel like God is telling us to feed people, so I really enjoy giving people food and feeding people, but it's also really fun to take people bouquets because normally it catches them off guard and it's a nice uplifter to their day. So I enjoy having flowers just for that reason.
Awesome. Katie, that is so beautiful. I have so enjoyed our conversation today, and we've also worked through our questions, and I always ask a question to our guests related to CAP's mission statement. So the mission statement of Christian Appalachian Project is building hope, transforming lives, and sharing Christ's love through service in Appalachia. When you think of hope, transformation, love, and service, which one do you think embodies the Appalachian spirit the most?
I think I would have to say love, just because Jesus told us to love our neighbor, love each other. And I think that's where everything starts in Appalachia. I think very much a community of loving each other. And I think service and transformation, hope all starts with love. And so that's what they give each other. That's what we need to give them. But they're all wonderful.
There you go. I love it. What are you most proud of about being from Appalachia?
Whenever I was growing up, I watched sports a lot. I don't really watch sports very much anymore. But everybody loves a good underdog story. And I think the whole time I lived in Appalachia, and even now, that's what it felt like, was being the underdog. Because you know how the world has a perception of the area. But there was never any question that, we would defy those odds, like all the expectations and things people had. And so I kind of liked that chip on my shoulder that people were expecting not very much out of somebody from Appalachia. So it always felt so great anytime I would see somebody proving the assumptions wrong. And so it makes me even more proud whenever the area is doubted and the area is forgotten, but we still see so many success stories coming out of Appalachia.
I love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you, Katie, for reminding us that faith, family, and hard work can truly turn a blank canvas into a home. We have so enjoyed having you on the show today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tina. I'm so thrilled to have talked to you again. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Our guest today was Katie Carrico, a shepherdess and homesteader. She and her husband Daniel are the co-owners of Lost Oak Farm. Thanks for listening, and we hope you'll catch new episodes every Tuesday and invite your friends to listen to. You know you can follow the work of Christian Appalachian Project on all social media channels and find the show at christianapp.org/podcast or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. If you like the show, please take a quick second to click that follow button and leave a review, which will help other people find our show too. We'll see you next time.